The scream came from behind the gates. "Don't come in. Get out of here, now." I froze mid-step, one foot still hovering above the driveway gravel. My heart slamming so hard I thought I might collapse right there in my heels. The woman running toward me wasn't a stranger. She was the housekeeper. And she looked terrified. Her apron was twisted around her waist, her hair half loose, eyes darting wildly toward the house behind her like something, or someone, might come bursting out at any second. "Please," she whispered harshly when she reached me. "You have to leave. Right now." "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Is my daughter okay?" She grabbed my arm so tightly it hurt. "It's not about her," she said. "It's about you." My stomach dropped. "Trust me," she added, lowering her voice even more. "You are not safe here." Then she looked past me again, panic flashing across her face. And without another word, she turned and ran back toward the house. Just like that, leaving me standing there with a dinner invitation burning a hole in my pocket, and the unmistakable feeling that if I stepped through that door, I might not walk out again. I got back into my car on instinct, locked the doors, started the engine, and then, against every sensible bone in my body, I stayed. Because when your child calls you after a year of silence, you don't just drive away. The message arrived late the night before. One line, from a number I had stopped checking. "Mom, can we have dinner tomorrow? Just us. I miss you." I read it so many times my phone dimmed and relit itself. After everything. After months of unanswered calls. After holidays spent staring at an empty chair. After being erased from my own child's life without explanation. One sentence brought me back to life. I didn't sleep that night. I rehearsed conversations that never happened. Apologies I didn't even know I owed. I changed outfits until dawn like a teenager desperate to impress. I chose the dress she once said made me look soft but strong. Funny how we cling to scraps. The house sat behind iron gates in one of those polished neighborhoods where nothing bad is supposed to happen, where problems are hidden behind hedges and security cameras. I helped pay for that house. I remembered planting flowers there with my daughter. Bright ones, hopeful ones. They were gone now, and the house felt wrong. Too quiet. Too staged. As if it were holding its breath. From my car, I had a clear view into the dining room. The lights were off at first. Then one by one they flicked on. Not candles. Not soft lighting. Office lighting. Cold. White. A man I didn't recognize entered first, carrying a leather folder. Then a woman in heels, tapping at a tablet. Then him. My daughter's husband. On his phone, gesturing sharply, already annoyed. And finally, my daughter. She didn't look excited to see me. She looked rehearsed. They sat. Papers were spread. Signatures were made. And then the smile. Not the smile I raised. Not the one that used to reach her eyes. This one was thin. Controlled. Almost relieved. My chest tightened. This wasn't dinner. This was something else. Something planned. Something that had nothing to do with reconnecting. And everything to do with why the housekeeper had begged me to run. I drove away, but not home. I parked beneath flickering lights at a roadside station, hands still shaking, my mind racing through possibilities I didn't want to name. Then my phone vibrated. A message. From an unknown number. "It's me. We need to talk tomorrow. Noon. Public place. Don't tell anyone." I stared at the screen. For the first time since my daughter disappeared from my life, I wasn't just heartbroken. I was afraid. Because love doesn't usually come with warnings. And dinners don't usually require witnesses. And no one begs you to run unless something very, very wrong is about to happen. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my daughter's hand signing papers that weren't meant for her, or for me. The next morning, I sat in my kitchen staring at cold coffee, replaying the housekeeper's words again and again. "It's about you." By noon, I was already seated in the far corner of a crowded transit cafe. The kind of place where no one looks twice at a woman sitting alone, clutching a mug she never drinks. I chose the table with the best view of the door. When the housekeeper finally walked in, I barely recognized her. Her uniform was gone. Her hair was tucked under a scarf. She looked smaller somehow, like fear had folded her inward. She didn't greet me. She slid into the chair across from me and whispered, "You shouldn't have come alone." That was when I knew this wasn't paranoia. This was survival. "He controls everything," she said quietly. "Every call, every message, every meal." I shook my head, still clinging to denial like a life raft. "My daughter cut me off," I said. "That was her choice." The housekeeper's eyes filled with tears. "No," she said. "That was his." She leaned closer, voice shaking. "He told her you were dangerous. That you wanted her money. That you were jealous of her marriage. Every time you tried to help, he twisted it." I felt something crack inside me. Pieces began snapping together. The sudden distance, the scripted phrases my daughter had used during our last argument, the way she stopped speaking in her own voice. "She barely eats," the housekeeper continued. "He decides what goes on her plate. He says thin women are disciplined. Obedient. Obedient." The word made my skin crawl. "And the dinner?" I asked. Her face went pale. "They needed your signature." That was the moment the air left my lungs. The housekeeper pulled a small device from her bag, no bigger than a pack of gum. "I recorded him," she said. "And I photographed documents from his office." My hands trembled as I took it. "They're transferring assets, properties, investments, things that are still partially under your name." I knew exactly what she meant. The apartment I helped buy. The accounts I managed until my daughter reached a certain age. I was a problem. And problems, apparently, needed to be removed. "There's more," she whispered. I didn't want to hear it. But she said it anyway. "He talked about an accident. About wine. About stairs." The cafe blurred around me. "That's insane," I whispered. "My daughter would never." "She's not herself anymore," the housekeeper said softly. "He's hollowed her out." Then she said the sentence that changed everything. "He said once you were gone, no one would question anything." Gone. Not moved away. Not cut off. Gone. I didn't cry until I reached the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back at me looked older than I felt. Grayer. Smaller. But behind the fear was something else. Resolve. I had survived worse men than my son-in-law. I had survived silence. And I would not survive by pretending this wasn't happening. That night, I didn't go home. I disappeared. Not because I was weak, but because staying would have gotten me killed. From a borrowed phone, the housekeeper sent updates. "He's nervous. He's making calls." He mentioned a backup plan. A backup plan. I learned then that predators always have one. And that whatever they were planning, I had already stepped off the script, which meant the story was about to change. For all of us. The countryside has a way of making danger feel unreal. No sirens. No cameras. Just wind, dust, and stars sharp enough to cut through the dark. The woman who took me in, a distant relative of the housekeeper, didn't ask questions. She just handed me a blanket, pointed to a narrow bed, and said, "Rest." I didn't. I listened. To recordings. To whispers. To my daughter's voice. Not her voice really, agreeing to things she didn't understand. That was the moment I stopped seeing her as someone who had abandoned me. She hadn't left. She'd been taken. The recordings were clinical. Calm. Calculated. Her husband explaining how paperwork could be simplified. How signatures could be recreated. How once I was out of the picture, everything would move faster. He spoke about my life the way someone discusses furniture. What shook me most wasn't him. It was her. "Yes," she said softly in one clip. "If that's what you think is best." I pressed stop. I vomited into the sink. Then I wiped my face and kept listening. Because denial was a luxury I could no longer afford. On the third morning, my lawyer called from a number I didn't recognize. "Someone's been in your apartment," he said. My heart dropped. Drawers emptied. Papers missing. The folder. The one with original documents. The one that proved what belonged to whom. "They're also investigating you," he added. "Financial irregularities. Tax issues. Completely fabricated, but official." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was perfect. If I showed up, I'd be arrested. If I stayed gone, they'd take everything. It wasn't a trap. It was a maze designed by someone who'd done this before. That night, my phone vibrated. One line. He's talking about taking her away. Another country. I stared at the screen. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about ownership. And if he got her alone, truly alone, I would lose her forever. That's when I made the call. Not to the police. Not to family. To someone who specialized in retrieving what had been stolen. He leaves tomorrow, the housekeeper whispered through the phone. Several hours. Maybe more. That was our window. We wouldn't argue. We wouldn't explain. We would remove her from the environment long enough for her mind to breathe. A former investigator. A trauma specialist. My lawyer. And me. A mother who was done asking permission. As we waited near the gates of that same house, the one that had almost swallowed me, I felt strangely calm. Fear had burned itself out. In its place was clarity. The kind that only arrives when you know exactly what you're willing to lose. Or kill for. When the message came, he's gone, we didn't hesitate. We moved. Quiet. Fussed. And once I stepped inside that house again, everything changed. The house smelled the same. Polished wood. Expensive candles. Control. I stepped inside quietly, every instinct screaming that I didn't belong there anymore. Not as a guest, not as a mother, not as anything but a threat to the life he'd carefully designed. The television murmured from the living room. She was there. My daughter. Curled into herself on the sofa like she was trying to disappear. For a second, I forgot the plan. Forgot the danger. Forgot the man who owned this house like a spider owns a web. All I could see was how thin she was. How empty. How broken. Sweetheart, I whispered. She turned. And the fear in her eyes nearly shattered me. What are you doing here? She asked urgently. You can't be here. Not angry. Terrified. He'll be back, she whispered. You have to leave. That's when I knew. Not only had he isolated her, he'd trained her. Every warning, every reflex, every fear, built around him. I stepped back instead of forward. I'm not here to fight, I said gently. I'm here to listen. She didn't believe me. She never would have, not yet. You invited me, I said softly. Her brow furrowed. I didn't, she replied. He said you changed your mind. That was the crack. The first fracture in the story she'd been fed. I showed her the message. She stared. Long. Silent. Then. Confusion. That's my number, she whispered. But I didn't send that. Silence fell. Not dramatic silence. The kind that rearranges reality. He said you hated him, she murmured. That you wanted to control me. I swallowed hard. I wanted to protect you, I said. There's a difference. The trauma specialist stepped forward carefully. What happens if you don't answer his calls? She asked. My daughter flinched. What happens if you eat something he didn't approve? More flinching. What happens if you disagree? My daughter broke. He gets angry, she sobbed. He says I'm ungrateful. That I'm nothing without him. And then the phone rang. Her body reacted before her mind did. She grabbed it like it was a lifeline. Her voice changed the second she answered. Soft. Obedient. Yes, I'm home. No, everything's fine. Yes, I followed the plan. I watched her disappear right in front of me. Then he said something. Something sharp. Something threatening. Her hands started shaking. I leaned forward. Sweetheart, I whispered. You don't have to lie. Her eyes filled with tears. She ended the call. Just like that. And in doing so, crossed a line she could never uncross. We have to go, the investigator said. No arguing. No second chances. She grabbed a jacket with trembling hands. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. I took her hand. You already are. We moved fast. Out the back. Into the car. The gates opened just as security began calling her name. By the time they realized she was gone, we were already on the highway. She stared out the window silent. Then she said it. He scares me. I close my eyes. Because fear named is power reclaimed. And for the first time since this nightmare began, my daughter wasn't running from me. She was running with me. We didn't even make it through the night before he came for us. I knew he would. Men like him don't lose control quietly. They don't reflect. They retaliate. The farmhouse was silent except for the wind rattling the windows, and the sound of my daughter's uneven breathing beside me. She hadn't slept. Every time a floorboard creaked, she flinched like a startled animal. I held her hand until dawn. Neither of us said much. We didn't need to. The knock came just after sunrise. Hard. Aggressive. Confident. The kind of knock that assumes the door will be opened. The investigator moved first, positioning himself calmly between us and the entrance. When he opened the door, my daughter's husband stood there, immaculate, furious, and already rehearsing his performance. "She's not well," he announced immediately, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Her mother kidnapped her. She's manipulating her." I felt my daughter tense, but she didn't step back. She stepped forward. "I'm here because I chose to be," she said. His face twitched. Just for a second. That's when I knew we'd won something he could never take back. The police arrived moments later. Not his friends. Not his people. Real officers. Unimpressed. The recordings played. The documents were laid out. The forgeries were obvious. Then my daughter did something I will never forget. She rolled up her sleeve. Silence filled the room. Finger-shaped bruises bloomed against her skin. Old ones, new ones, carefully hidden ones. "This," she said steadily, "is what happens when I don't obey." For the first time, he didn't have words. Just rage. And fear. They took him away screaming. Not threats. Not clever insults. Just raw panic from a man who realized the cage he built had snapped shut around him instead. Justice is loud at first. Then it's paperwork. Court dates. Statements. Waiting rooms that smell like burnt coffee and old carpet. My daughter shook through most of it. Some days she was fierce. Other days she cried because she missed him, and hated herself for missing him. Healing isn't linear. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. But she kept going. That's what mattered. When the verdict came, she squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. Fraud. Forgery. Abuse. Attempted harm. Years. Real ones. No early release. No contact. As they led him away, he looked at me. Not with hatred. With disbelief. Like he still couldn't understand how he'd lost. I met his eyes and didn't look away. We moved. New city. New routines. My daughter learned to eat without permission. To sleep without fear. To laugh without checking if it was allowed. I watched her rediscover herself piece by piece. Not the girl she used to be, but the woman she became. Stronger. Sharper. Kinda. One afternoon years later, she leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You never stopped fighting for me." I kissed her hair and answered honestly, "I never even considered stopping." Because somewhere, right now, a woman is being told she's crazy. That her fear is imaginary. That love hurts. It doesn't. Control isn't love. Silence isn't peace. And running isn't a weakness when it saves your life. Sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is listen to the voice that whispers, "Something is wrong." And sometimes the bravest thing a mother can do is refusing to let her child disappear. Please click the subscribe button, like, share, and comment. This will encourage me to make more interesting stories. Also, let's know where you are watching from. Thank you and see you in the next story.